uptick in violence of late. Last week, we reported some statistics from the government in Mexico, and the Associated Press accumulated some numbers. They reported that 64 people had been killed in Tamaulipas state the previous month alone in Mexico. 14 individuals were killed as a result of a firefight in Reynosa about a week and a half ago. Like a couple of those were Mexican federal police officers. The rest were gunmen, and two innocent bystanders also killed. Yesterday, we reported more gun violence in Matamoros and in Reynosa. 5 gunmen killed. And in Ciudad Victoria, the update to the story from the Associated Press, the top Mexican police investigator for that area, for Tamaulipas, was also killed. Joining us on 710 KURV to review some of the violence near us and deeper in Mexico as the unrest continues. The power vacuum, I guess, is exhibited right now with all this violence. Mexico security analyst for Stratfor is Tristan Reed. Tristan, welcome to the show. Now, I think it's important. In our audience, we have some individuals who know what Stratfor is. In fact, they're probably subscribers to Stratfor because they do a lot of international travel. But please, for other folks that may have new interest in Mexico, may need to travel to Mexico, explain what Stratfor does, Tristan.
Stratfor is a global intelligence company. We focus on global events as well as Mexico security. We provide risk assessments for anyone interested in Mexico, anywhere in Mexico. And then we also have a Mexico Security Monitor service. It's a subscription-based service where we provide weekly updates as well as annual and quarterly forecasts of security in Mexico.
Okay. And as of right now, with your sources on the ground in Mexico and other colleagues that you speak with, what's taking place near us? So we've seen this uptick of late. What's going on in Reynosa, Matamoros, and Tamaulipas State?
So Tamaulipas State is a state that we've been following very closely for several years now, for obvious reasons. That the state has seen unimaginable violence related to organized crime, from the border region all the way down south to Tampico. And this year we've seen the collapse of a faction of the Gulf Cartel in southern Tamaulipas, and it appears that that's also reverberating up to the northern factions in Reynosa. And there is a power struggle going on in Reynosa right now, as well as Tampico. And this is really the root cause of the most recent violence and the number of killed since March.
Okay, so this reported collapse of elements of the Gulf, does that mean the Zeta cartel has won or is winning? Is that what's taking place?
No, not necessarily. The Zetas over the past couple of years have been lowering their profile in terms of violence. They've actually been using Reynosa for their own illicit activities, but they've been using it without the need for violence, which tells us that, whether there's some mid-level individual within the Gulf Cartel in Reynosa allowing them, so it's not necessarily Los Zetas going to come in. However, it's something that we're watching very closely, particularly in the southern part of the state where Los Zetas are much closer geographically to Tampico.
After that police official, that investigator, was killed yesterday or the day before in Ciudad Victoria, our sister station 840 AM Informativo RG, they did an interview with a Mexican official who claims that Tamaulipas State, they will be, through social media, they will now be alerting residents of hotspots and firefights. It's a major shift. If true, and if we see that happen, that's a major shift for them, because usually folks had to depend on each other to warn each other of hotspots that were taking place. Are you seeing a change by the Mexican government when it comes to providing information or attacking the cartels?
Well, it's a change within the state government in Tamaulipas. Tamaulipas is a black hole of information related to crime and violence. It's very difficult to get local media outlets to report on what's going on, which is why local residents have to rely on social media to understand where are the security risks in Reynosa or Matamoros or all the way south down to Tampico. And so the fact that you have the Tamaulipas state government coming out and saying, we're going to create this system to alert you is a major shift for that government.
Joining us on 710 KURV from Stratfor, Mexico security analyst Tristan Reed.
Tristan, Tim Sullivan here. If you could elaborate on some of your earlier points, why so much violence now in Reynosa and Matamoros? Because it used to be Ciudad Juarez. What's changed in the last couple of years?
Well, Tamaulipas has seen a large amount of violence since 2003. You've had multiple turf wars. There's been multiple causes for the violence. For a while, it was the split up of the Gulf or the Los Zetas from the Gulf Cartel. More recently, this year, there's a major shift in organized crime as a whole in Tamaulipas State, and that's due to the Gulf Cartel continually breaking down and fragmenting. The Gulf Cartel hasn't been a cohesive crime network since 2012, and
They still seem to get the job done, though.
Oh, and absolutely. You're going to have drug traffickers that are going to be pushing a large amount of dope across the border, and they still have the money because of that. And then, they also engage in other criminal activities that are more likely to affect bystanders in the cities, like kidnapping and extortion. So there's still a lot of illicit money that is being made.
Yeah. How much has the success of the Mexican military and the arrests of several high-level drug cartel kingpins in recent months and years, how much has that led to the recent violence we're seeing?
Well, the breakup of the Gulf Cartel has been mostly because of military pressure. In 2012, there was a series of substantial arrests of high-level Gulf Cartel leaders. And since 2012, there's been ongoing power struggles between these different factions. You have a faction in Reynosa, a faction in Matamoros, a faction in Tampico. And over time, they've just sort of become like their own independent crime groups, but happen to carry the same Gulf Cartel name. Other areas, it's a little bit different. In Ciudad Juarez, we've seen a massive drop in violence over the last few years, which is mostly due to organized crime sort of settling the disputes. You still have high levels of violence in Juarez, and you're still going to see organized crime-related violence, but it's a much lower level. In Tamaulipas, this year, the violence hasn't been Los Zetas versus the Gulf Cartel. It's been Gulf Cartel members fighting Gulf Cartel members.
Well, doing what Stratfor does, what is your analysis now as to where all of this leads? So what is the likely outcome? What role does the Mexican military play in all of this?
Well, and this is the greatest concern for us, is while we're seeing these high levels of violence between Gulf Cartel members, that's distracting security forces. That's distracting the military. That's distracting the federal police, which means they're going to have less room to conduct preventive policing. They're going to have less room to go after carjackers and low-level kidnappers. And so we do expect the military and the federal police to become a top concern. A couple weeks ago, you had a federal representative in Mexico as well as Tamaulipas State Senator witness the ongoing violence in Tamaulipas State, and they both came out about the violence. That's going to draw a lot of attention.
Yeah, once it got too close to home, the politicians started chirping and complaining about it. Tristan, thank you much. Tristan Reed, Mexico security analyst for Stratfor, joining us on 710 KURV.